Are we ready? Okay, so everybody knows Emily and I, Maine, Valerie. So when you want to boom a point, so the one thing to always be mindful of when we're podcasting is don't be like the first time I saw Mike Ness from Social Distortion doing this.
Okay.
That's all I heard the entire time.
Okay.
He was definitely on heroin. It was a great show though. My brother's band opened up Southern California, LA, band called Social Distortion.
Okay.
And literally the guy was just jamming. He'd be like, that's all we heard. But
it looked cool.
Somebody needs to grab that guy and do this. So it's always my reminder to everybody, like, talk in the microphone.
You got to get a little creepier close to it than you think.
Okay, so
Yes.
Like on it where you're almost touching it.
Hello there. Hello there. Yeah.
Ah,
Yes.
okay.
Bedroom
Welcome
voice.
to Tom
That's
Ferry
in the
After
red
Dark.
room.
Hey, welcome back to the podcast. It feels like it's been a day, but I'm so excited about today's show. We have been discussing this for quite some time. I am obsessed, as I talk about this year at the summit, that for the last 2 decades, I've been helping real estate professionals sell a lot of houses, operationalize their business, become great brands, do great marketing, and make a lot of money. And the thing that has frustrated me is the number of people that take that cash and somehow blow it all. Don't save it. Don't put themselves in a position to win. So I made the claim at the summit that I was going to spend the next decade helping people make better decisions psychologically and physically with their cash so they can put themselves in a position to retire. But you and I, Valerie, have been in discussion for a while. Emily, you and I have been in discussion, but very quickly, Val is the star of the show. Tell them who you are, and then we'll do a little introduction. And then we want to talk about your journey. So for my friend that's listening, if you know someone that was a real estate agent or is a real estate agent or a salesperson who got themselves in debt, thought they could never get out of it, had a moment and flipped that from paying off their debt to $100,000 in savings to $400,000 in savings, then this is the right show for you. So Valerie, give me a little backstory. Who are you? Where do you work? How long you been in the business?
Sure. I'm Valerie Upham. I'm in San Diego, California, and my 20-year anniversary is this January as a real estate agent. And I have a small team. There's 2 agents, and I have a marketing coordinator and a virtual assistant, and then another part-time gal that really makes a difference for the team.
I love it. All that sounds expensive, and today we're talking about debt reduction and saving more money, but I love it. So Emily, you've been on the show before, great coach with us. For the people that don't have context for you, give her a quick, like, who are you, where you're from, what do you do?
Sure. So I'm Coach Emily Terrell. I started in real estate about 8 years ago, and I started coaching 2 years ago. I absolutely love it. I do speak for the company now.
Yep.
You might know that, Tom.
Yes.
But I do speak for the company.
Shout out to the Speaker Bureau.
Just a little bit. And I'm a mom,
Yep.
and I travel. Not only for speaking, but I absolutely love to travel. It's my one guilty pleasure of seeing everything that I can.
I love it. I love it. Well, all right. So Valerie, I think the person listening right now is now thinking like, okay, wait a minute, this is sounding like me.
Mm-hmm.
So give us the backstory. Like, how did you create the $60,000 in debt? And then we're going to get into the details of like the psychology around the decisions you had to make, how you created some accountability around it. But how did you first just get into that much debt?
Growing up, my mother would get us everything that we needed by writing a check.
Mm-hmm.
And she would, always check the mailbox for that non-sufficient funds notice from the bank. And it was just paycheck after paycheck. And she would just buy because we needed something.
Yes.
And
was she buying stuff that you needed, or was she buying stuff that you wanted? Because when you're a kid, there's a big difference.
I'd say both. It was school pictures. I went to Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were divorced when I was a baby, so I'd go with my dad on weekends, and he would barely pay child support. And my mom I had a stepdad, and she lived outside of her means, 100%. And I'm the youngest of 5 kids.
Okay.
So it was just we went to a really nice school, private school, and all the other kids had more. And so, everything, like I said, down to school photos
Mm-hmm.
and needing new shoes. And she wanted us to have the best.
Yes.
So we didn't, we had TV dinners for dinner.
Sure.
And everything looked good on the outside, but really we didn't have, it was check to check.
I'd be curious for the person listening right now, and I'd love your backstory as well. Think about what is your earliest childhood memory of money and how that impacts the decisions that we continue to make, in most cases, completely unconscious, right? We're unconscious to the early memories and how that really shaped our reality when it comes to money. Do you have an early backstory on money you want to share?
Sure. So my childhood was very similar, but my parents were also divorced, and they had two different views of money. My mom, single mom, had barely any money, and we lived very, single wide trailer. We didn't have anything. But what I didn't realize is as I got older, she actually started creating a shopping habit for herself. And so she had a ton of secret debt that we weren't aware of. And so, it was learning, it was unusual because I learned to be thrifty and save, but then also I had the opposite of when I found out later that she wasn't saving as much as we thought. She was actually secretly spending it because she would go and buy, a $100 pair of jeans for $75 because they were on sale, or even $50 because they were on clearance, but you didn't need the jeans.
Right.
She didn't need to spend the $50, $75 at all. She could have just not. So, and then my dad was the opposite, very similar to Valerie. His love language is acts of service, and acts of service meant, I'll just buy everything.
That was my mom too. She would buy us things to show us that she loved us.
Yes. Yeah. Same thing. And except he didn't have the money either. So I didn't have great role models when it came to actually building wealth and staying in a place where I didn't have to live paycheck to paycheck. It was just not a great role model for me on any side.
Yes. So I've unpacked all this, and I think all of our stories are similar. So let's transition to at what moment did you have that sort of awakening, that moment of awareness where you were like, this is stupid, or whatever you said to yourself? What was that moment?
Sure. So I was at Elite Retreat in Palm Desert back in the day, and every time I would go to one of your events, primarily at Elite Retreat, you always talk about money. Mm-hmm. And I would just wait for that moment. And you talked about what was possible. And I'm a visual person. So I used to listen to Mark Victor Hansen and Jack Canfield. Yes. Visualizing is realizing. Mm-hmm. And so I had been listening to those tapes all through my 20s. Now I'm in my 30s. I'm going to your coaching program. And you're talking about money and what's possible. And I never really, you said things that I had never even imagined were possible for me. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And every time you continue to do that, and I continue to listen, right? So it's really important that you continue to do that.
I promise.
And you talked about the possibility of saving $100,000. And to me, that was an impossibility. Mm-hmm. So sitting in that room, you said, who here would like to save $100,000? So I raised my hand and you selected me. And at that time, I had $60,000 in debt. And that was a secret. Like my husband didn't even know that that's what kind of debt that we had.
Sure.
And I was making good money. We were doing fine, paying the bills, but the debt just kept accumulating. And so I raised my hand and it was a challenge. Now that was in 2016. And it took me 2.5 years before I finally saved that $100,000. And I'd go to a summit and I'd hide from you because I knew the year later I didn't do it in a year's time.
I'd be like, where's Valerie? Where's Valerie? Yes.
But then when I finally did it, I called my financial advisor and I said, I need you to move this money to this account because I wanted it all to be in one account.
Yes.
So without you purposely doing it, you were holding me accountable because I said I would do it. So my word was really important to me. Mm-hmm. And when I got it, I went up to show you the statement.
I remember.
And then I thought, oh, good, I'm done. I got it. I got to 100,000. And then Tom said, okay, what's next? Let's go for 150,000. I thought, oh my God, but I've done it.
Yes.
Right. And so the psychology around that was taking the small steps. Mm-hmm. You talked about incorporating your business. So in California, I became an S Corp. I took that step. You then said, open up the business accounts. Yep. I did that. Then you said, take 10%, and put that into the savings account. So I did the small steps.
Yes.
And they felt like big steps in the moment. But if you stay focused and you write down, these are the steps that I need to take, you can get there. And it's one at a time, and it's every paycheck, and it's intentional. And I recently asked Tom, how do you do this? Like his lifestyle and all the energy that he has. And he said, focus. And anytime I have focused on something because I really, really wanted it, I've achieved it. And oftentimes I will lose my focus. But when you know what you want, you just stay on track, you can get there. Even in this market in 2023, the market has shifted. When I first started doing this, it was 2016, and it was definitely not the market of 21 and 22. So it's very significant to know what you want. And knowing what you want is really the first step.
So there's a lot to unpack there. The first thing is to acknowledge that if you go from $60,000 in debt to $100,000, it really is about $300,000 in actual revenue that has to be created because you got to pay taxes. Then you got to pay off the debt. Mm-hmm. Now you're at 0. Now you got to get to 100. So did your work ethic change? Did the way you viewed your daily disciplines? Did your marketing change? Did other things around you adjust? Or was it just the declaration that I can do this, and you set up the accounts the right way? My probably most watched video on YouTube. Thank you if you've ever seen it. Setting up your accounts, organizing. Hey, this money goes to taxes. Yep. It's not mine. This goes to the house. This goes to run my business. This goes to savings. You did that. Mm-hmm. But what changed from your daily marketing activities that caused the acceleration in revenue?
So I didn't want to be on a budget because to me, a budget was limiting, and I don't have a limited mindset. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like having a diet. A lot of people focus on what you can't have, but when you focus on what you can have, there's a lot of great tasting vegetables. There's a lot of great food, but when you focus on what you can't have, it's harder. It's a bigger struggle. So instead of focusing on something I couldn't have, I focused on what it was that I wanted. And that mindset change. Also, my average price for real estate sales was $600,000, and I wanted to double it. And so part of you can save money, right? But the easiest way to save money is to make more. So I also focused on what can I do to double my price point. Who else can I help? What other conversations can I have? And that's why that's relevant for today, right? Because it is hard work. Mm-hmm. But if you're doing something that you enjoy, it doesn't have to be hard. It just has to be focused.
So when you hear this, Coach, what goes through your mind? Because this is one of the great, and maybe first of all, we should be doing this.
Yeah, good job.
You know what I mean? Like standing ovation on the podcast. It's one of the great examples of making a decision, creating a plan, keeping it simple, all these cliche things that everyone writes down and we see quote cards on. But what most people don't understand is progress looks like this: nothing, 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 and all of a sudden, boom, right? And here you are from 2016 to 2023 with, nearly $500,000 cash saved, no debt, 400,000, right? But that's close, right? Like $400,000 saved, which we know in the state of California or New York, if you lived in Canada, essentially half of every dollar you bring in goes to taxes. So you're creating a lot of revenue now. Yeah. What are you thinking?
Honestly, what I'd like to know, and this may be really personal, but having the debt, what did it cause you as far as stress? Like, how did that change? How did your life change? Because for me, stress is a major part. I mean, we've talked about like anxiety and things that have go with me personally. So how did it change for you when you actually got to just let go of the debt and then switch?
You attract more people. So my confidence changed. Pivot was a huge part of that in 2020. So when you don't have money and you're working with a client and you're waiting for that next paycheck, it impacts your relationship with that client and you don't even know it. So I would wait for a paycheck early on, right? And that transaction would fall through because I was so focused on the money, and somehow not that I was aware of, but it interfered with the transaction is how I look at it. Sure. When you focus on the client, then the money comes. And when my debt was paid off, I'm freer and I'm not worried about money. And so I'm out just helping people, and it really shines through, and then people want to work with you. When you're fearful, and I continue to go through that pattern, right? Mm-hmm. So right now the market has shifted and it's scary. It's like, okay, where are my next clients going to come from? And then I catch myself and I say, okay, I can't go there. I just have to focus on, where I'm going and who I'm going to help, and not focus on me so much. And then it works out. It's
a weird thing that money is like one of these weird things that people have such strange associations to, right? Like Catholic school, money is the root of all evil. Like, really? Then why does the Catholic Church have more money than anyone else on the planet and have all the real estate holdings? Like, maybe there's a story there. Or you start to realize that money is just a tool, right? But for some people, the obsession over money becomes, and that could be positive or negative perception, right? Like, I have to get this deal closed. Now it's about you. It's not about the buyer. It's not about the seller. It's not about the mortgage. It's not about, who you're dealing with. It's just you need a check versus like, hey, I'm obsessed with like making money because I want to contribute more and I want to be able to help more people. It's just a weird thing. So did you get your answer to the question? Like, like how did the stress get relieved and how did it show up?
Oh, yeah. Well, and also, so now that you know what you know, how is it affecting your business now? Because as you mentioned, 2016 was a different market. We're in a completely different market. Yes. So what are you doing now to make sure that you can continue your growth and not inadvertently spend all your $400,000 and put yourself back into debt? So what are you changing?
So my husband said to me on my way here, he's like, he's like, we're going to stop spending money because I'm really worried. I don't know how much money you're spending. And I just ordered the 8-bed.
Yes.
So,
8
it's
Sleep.
arriving tonight.
Oh my God,
yes.
I love it.
So
today's show is brought to you by 8 Sleep. Tom Ferry's a fan with no promo code, but I own 2 of them. I love it.
So anyway, I'm excited.
Sorry. Yeah.
So, but he's like, we need to, slow down.
Yeah.
Christmas is coming. We have 2 kids. One kid is a senior in high school, a daughter in college. So all of these things, right? And the economy is changing.
Expenses.
Yes.
Yes.
Very real. So what I'm doing right now, and I'm in the middle of it, is I'm looking at all of my expenses again. I'm going back to my credit cards. I'm looking at Audible. Do I really need it? I have 6 credits right now on Audible. And so I'm like, I'm just going to buy 6 more books. I'm going to shut down Audible for that $15 a month.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to look at all those small things. It's I was going to quote somebody's dad. She said it's the 2s and did I write it down? It doesn't matter. But it's in the Starbucks, right? It's those small purchases. I had a financial advisor once tell me, people prepare for the big purchases. They prepare for the washer or dryer or a new car, but they don't. It's the small dollars that just go out the door all the time.
$8 at Dunkin' Donuts every day for like 5 straight years.
Yep.
Interrupting my own show with a quick little announcement. If you're like me and you recognize this is the time of the year when we've got to make decisions, we got to look back at what's worked in the past and decide what we want to have happen in 2024. Then yes, it is time for you to get your plan together. Now, if you're one of my coaching clients, you just go inside a Loom, you download the 2024 plan, you and your coach work on that together. If you're not one of my clients, go to tomferry.com. There's be a link below. Download a copy of the plan. Get to work on it. Use ChatGPT and other resources to answer the tough questions about the strategies you need to implement to ensure your success in 2024. So tomferry.com. Get your business plan and let's get to work. Now let's go back to the show.
So have you heard of the concept of figuring out 20% of the work that you do that gets you 80% of your business?
Absolutely.
So have you thought about pushing that concept into your business now? Figuring out 20% of your expenses that are truly funding?
So I am in the middle of evaluating, and it's no fun, right? But
what do you mean? Okay. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to be like, that doesn't work. Kill it. That doesn't work. Kill it.
Because I have so many
works,
ideas.
Put more at it.
Right? I want to do this and I want to do this. And I have to. So I have to cut back, right? Slow down and focus. And
prioritization.
You notice the message of this broadcast is focus. So I'm looking at where am I spending my time? I'm looking at where am I spending my money?
Right.
And I have to just break it down, and I have to get really serious about that for 2024.
How are you doing that?
Okay.
What numbers are you using? Or at least how are you organizing to where you understand this is working, this is not?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm looking at, and again, I'm in the process, so I haven't finished this, but I'm looking at my transactions from this year and where did the clients come from? Where did I meet them? Okay, what am I going to focus on in 2024? So I have to look at who I'm working with. Then I have to look at what money am I spending for those categories. So I have a farm. I do teacher pop buys. I have a demographic farm and a geographic farm.
Yep.
I also work with seniors. And there's all these things I want to do. And so I need to just stop. So, okay, what am I spending on this pillar, and so forth? And then see where my money's really coming from. And I'm going to have to cut things out, right?
Or
so
adjust.
I'm going to say the big...
Cut where I spend my time.
See, I think it's that. It is, most of us miss, like in the early days of my business, when I started 20 years ago, it was very clear, like I had money and I could have invested every dollar, and I did. I had $52,000 a month the day I started with no revenue. But I was super clear, sweat equity was how I was going to get there. So I said to myself, rather than, complicated email campaigns, building new functioning websites, which I just said, let's just do the bare minimum of what I have to do. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get on the phone, I'm going to book appointments, and I'm going to go see people and do that 3 times a day and do it every day for the first 3 years. And you wake up and you're like, holy shit, I have a really good business and a great profit. So I'm curious, like when you think about like, okay, I'm going to make these cuts, it's always smart. But remember, like we know when you cut marketing, it's sometimes very hard to recover from that, especially when you have an established farm, an established base of clients. You've created this tribe of seniors as an example. So if you're going to adjust the dollars, you need to massively adjust your sweat equity and how you spend time with those people.
Absolutely. I'm planning coffee meetings.
Good.
That's in my business plan. It's free. I mean, basically. And you're spending time one-on-one. That's where I shine, is when I'm with people. I care about people. I listen to them, and you connect with people. And when you connect with people, then real estate comes out of that as well.
I love the one-on-one. I'd challenge everybody to think about how you go one to many. Like one-on-one is like the mega trend right now, beyond like AI everywhere, is personalization, right? It's like sending people, say, hey, your home values have gone up. That's great. But if I send you a Zillow text of your estimate and I say, Valerie, I was thinking about you today. I was on Zillow. This is what it's saying. What do you think about this price? That engagement, like right now, that's generating 5% conversion to a listing appointment across like a couple 100,000 of those text messages that our clients have sent. So personalization, but then on the flip side, I know if you got in front of 25 seniors versus one, 25 people in your farm versus one, the impact is geometric. So how do you do that?
So I'm doing seller seminars. Maureen and Jay, hats off to you.
Out.
Absolutely. And so, but I used to do seller seminars. My dad died in 2018. And so I was really focused on working with our older adults at that time, working in senior communities, doing presentations, partnering with elder law attorneys. And I stopped for a while, right, for what I just said. And then now I'm getting back into that. So I've already got the relationships with the senior communities, with nursing homes, skilled nursing, assisted living, independent living communities, and I do presentations. So I've done that, and I'm starting that again. But then in my community, I'm doing the seller seminars.
Smart.
I've done 2 this year, so I've got the groundwork. Now I need to go forward. So in 2024, I'm starting in January, because everything's, people are with their families and they're not going to as many in the fall. So that's my focus.
Good.
Yeah.
You didn't know this podcast was going to become a dual coaching session, did you?
No.
Okay, so I want to go back to the money for a second. So we talked about the decision, right, back in 2016. What was the early conversation you had to have with your spouse, or did you?
There you go. No, my husband and I don't talk about money a lot.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Details.
I mean, he knows that we're good, and he knows, and I'll show him, hey, look how much money we had. And I asked him before I came on the show, I'm like, so I know I'm going to be asked about you. So he just said that he knows, he's grateful that we have as much money as we've saved. And we have investments as well. This is just for real estate.
Yeah.
And, but he said, I know we could be spending so much more. And he also saving so much more. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But he also comes from a family. He's the youngest of 4. And he, early on, I said, honey, let's create a budget. And he's like, okay, great. Will eat top ramen and we'll spend nothing. And I'm like, no, that's not what. No. And neither of us really know how to live by a budget. You can create it and put it on paper, but to live by a budget's different. So when he said that, I'm like, forget it. No, you're out. I'm not including you in this conversation. So no, we didn't talk about it. I think I did tell him, hey, honey, I'm going to save 100,000. And he's like, oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Just let me know when that happens.
What do you say to the person that's listening that is like, my spouse and I, we engage similarly, right? Like, I kind of say I'm going to do this, and my spouse is like, yeah, whatever. Like, and your spouse loves you. It's just, money is one of those, like, my mentor, Mike Vance, would always say, sex, politics, money, religion, that's all I want to talk about, but nobody wants to discuss it because it's taboo for a lot of people. But I think money is, as a couple, it's one of the most important conversations. And there's no right or wrong. Like, my wife can take $1 and somehow squeeze $1.25 out of it, right? Like, that's just how she operates, where I'm like, let's take that $1 and figure out how to make 7, 8, 10, 15 and do it 5,000 times over and over again. We are polar opposites with money, but we found agreement. We found common ground. How did you and your husband
really well. We're both very independent. We just do activities differently.
Yeah.
And we're okay with that.
Yeah.
And
That's
he trusts
beautiful.
me, which is the great thing. And he also doesn't, he tried to help file the tax returns this year. And he's like, honey, I tried. He's like, I can't. So he just gave it back to me. He just doesn't like to deal with the details. It's just not him.
Yeah.
But he's great with other details.
Of course.
Right. And you mentioned that people don't want to talk about money, sex, religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they don't talk about it, but they want to.
Yeah.
And that's another reason I wanted to do this podcast is because I want people to be able to talk more freely about money.
Mm-hmm.
I
thought we were going to say sex.
That's enough. Didn't you say that's Tom Ferry After Dark?
I couldn't help it. I'm sorry. Welcome to the show.
So I want people to be able to talk more about money.
Yes.
I did a money mastermind for a year.
And not in a bravado way. Not in a,
No.
look at me in my Lamborghini that I don't own and a photo of me in front of it. Like honest conversations about saving, investing, discipline, changing your psychology.
Mm-hmm.
So your mastermind.
So on this journey, I've had people join my mastermind webinar, I guess, Zoom call.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people would show up and then a few people. And it was interesting that what people would share with me about their journey.
Yeah.
And initially I started it because I wanted to show people how to pay off debt. And so everybody would show up for that. And then the more people would show up, they want to learn how to invest money.
Right.
They're like, well, what do I do next? And I realized I don't have the tools for that. And so I would bring in specialists, my CPA, my financial advisor, and it still didn't take me down the path that I wanted. There are other people like myself who have, $60,000, $50,000, $20,000 in debt more. And then there's people who have saved it that I know. Mm-hmm. They were ahead of the game and wanting to help other people to save money. And now that one of my friends, her husband lost his job, and then now she's back into debt. And so just because you have it doesn't mean that you stay there. So you really have to create a habit in how you save and what you spend money on in your choices, because it can get you.
And I would even argue too, like for every business owner, one of the top 4 or 5, I said number one of the top, I think we all know collectively, I have a slide that sort of punches a little humor at this. I say most real estate agents in accounting, not that great, but you all seem to figure out how to do 2.5% of $375,492. Like bang, you got that number down. But we need more awareness around forecasting. Hey, we're back into a regular market where typically the fourth quarter is going to be slower. We might have closings, but those are a lagging indicator from what happened in the third quarter. The first quarter, if you're in the Northeast or most of the world, it's going to be slower until the spring market. So what we see in the brokerage world and large teams is the fourth quarter and the first quarter are not starvation, but they're really, you got to be super mindful of your budget because all your money's in the second and third quarter. Most people don't think that way.
Most people want the check right now. What can I do to get paid right now? I will tell you. So I'm going to share something. So I was my dad's caregiver back in 2017. And at the end of 2017, I did really well in real estate. Mm-hmm. And then, but in 18 was when he was really sick. Yeah. And I lost him in September of 2018. So in 2018, I would go to his chemo appointment. I'd be working as he was doing his treatment. And then I'd have family time. And then I'd be really focused on work time. And I split the two. And I thought, oh, wow, I've got this down. This is great. I just need to split my time, right? In 2019, after he died, I did less business than I had in years. And it was because I wasn't out with people. And so at the end of 18, when I did great in 18, the year that he passed, I thought I could do both. And, but I wasn't out with people. So it's lagging. It hit me in 19. And all the business I did in 18 was because of all the relationships that I had focused on in 17.
Right.
So what you're doing now will impact you 3 months, 90 days from now, 6 months from now. And a lot of people right now are slowing down because they're frustrated and people aren't selling, people aren't buying, but it's the relationships that you're making right now that are going to impact your spring market. And a lot of people may not start until January because they're tired and they're beat up. And I felt beat up recently and was very discouraged. And so I get it. But then you just have to pick yourself back up and you just have to get back out there and start those coffee meetings. And it'll just carry you through.
Yeah. And coffee meetings is whatever you do.
Calling, making your calls.
So I'll give you a very analytical number for you to think about, all of us. And that is, right now, if I study, let's just take every one of my large clients that has a large number of past clients, centers of influence, online leads, open house leads, geographic farming, just across the board. Let's just call it potential clients. It's 115 days from the day you meet them until you put them into escrow. 115 days. So every day you don't do a coffee meeting, every day you don't make your phone calls, every day you don't send the email, you push off signing a contract for 115 days on average. 100, and I'm baffled by how many people, you hear me and you go, yes, that makes sense. I understand the deal I have today. I met, 5-6 months ago, but on average, I get it's 115 days. But I don't feel like making my phone calls today. I don't feel like going on coffee. And I want to lovingly just punch you in the throat and say, no one cares how you feel.
Right.
If you want to serve your family, if you want to get out of debt, if you want to save more money, if you want to put yourself in a better position, you have to start doing things that other people avoid, because that's where all the money is. Like, my job is help people do what they avoid, right? Like, that's all it, right? As a coach, like 100%. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So my little rant, as we wrap this up, closing thoughts from you on the person that is in debt that wants to get out of debt.
Start with the numbers. Figure out what debt you're truly in. If you don't know where you are right now, you're not going to be able to plan for the future effectively. Yes. So start with a realistic look of where you're at. From there, you can plan. Yeah. It's why we start business plans with what we did this year.
Right.
So we can know where to go.
Yep. Assess where you're at. What are your assets? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? And then go from there. Closing thoughts on save more money, get out of debt.
You talked about making your calls and not feeling like it. The one thing that has stopped me here and there is when I think about what I'm going to do next. You just got to make the plan and do it, because if you get in your head, it's going to slow you down. And so I used to, I'd hear money conversations and a book on money, and somehow I would walk out of the seminar at that time because I got a phone call for a client, and I would miss the money conversation that I needed to hear. So pull yourself, or find conversations about money. Listen to Dave Ramsey, the debt snowball. That's how I got out of debt, was by paying off the small little bills, so that I felt good about it. And then I was like, oh, I'm not much closer. Yeah. So that was the Total Money Makeover book, was what helped me also.
I love it. I love it. Shout out to Dave Ramsey. All right. So my advice is similar. I would get it up in visual. I would have a conversation with my spouse. If I'm not married, I'd have a conversation with my kids. What we know today is if we're trying to develop a habit, they got a 3% chance of ever fulfilling on that, where 85% of the people that succeed, they succeed because they go, hello, my name is Tom and I'm an alcoholic. And they show up to a meeting. Hello, I'm at Weight Watchers and I want to lose weight. Hello, I've got a coach and I want to create some accountability. Hello, my name is Valerie. I want to help everybody do the same thing I did. When you created that mastermind, what you did is you created the 85% chance. Right? You got probably the greatest benefit of that mastermind because you were talking about it all the time, right? It was in your ethos. You were sharing it with people. So for the person listening right now, you got to ask yourself, it's not just get a coach. It is, how can I create more structure around paying off my debt and saving more money? My wife and I, when we first got married, our little place in Newport, little funny little condo, we wrote out all of our debt, and she had secret debt. And she was like, okay, you want the balance? Here we go. I got this one and this one and this one. I was like, holy crow. But we were able to pay that off in 18 months. And we did kind of eat top ramen, but it was Italian food. So it was the Italian equivalent. Lots of pasta, no meatballs. But the bottom line was having that conversation, creating that structure. That's where you get the behavior set. You gotta do it with people. You can't do it alone. That would be my advice. So Valerie, as we wrap this up, if somebody wants to find you, could they go find you on Instagram?
Absolutely.
Send you a fax? How do they reach you?
I do have a fax machine.
I'm kidding.
So at Valerie Upham for Instagram, and my phone number. If anybody ever wants to call me, if you want a Total Money Makeover book, I've bought books for people because I really want people to start and pay off their debt. And if you want to talk about your money journey and it's, confidentially, I'm happy to talk with you and help you get on your path.
Yeah.
So
it's very valuable. So I would say DM you on Instagram, right? That'd be the best way to do it. So this was great. Thank you so much for listening. Share this with a friend or two that might need to hear this message. Maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your kid, maybe it's your brother, maybe it's your best friend inside the office who seems to always have a spending habit. So let's help more people. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you guys on the next show. Take care.